Okay, today you're going to learn about acrylic techniques. You're actually going to do these on watercolor paper, and then we will glue these in or tape these into your sketchbooks. So, acrylic techniques. The first one we're going to do is called underpaint. Underpaint is the very first step in painting using acrylic. It is a watered down paint. It's a watered down paint. So, I'm going to get some paint. You get some paint in an ice cube tray. You'll need a palette knife. I have mine in cups just because that's what I grabbed. So I get a scoop. I kind of use the back side of my palette knife, and I don't need a whole lot because this is a watered down paint, so I just need a little bit. So I'm going to scoop up some of this pale yellow, and I'm going to put it in my palette right there. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife with a paper towel because I don't want to let the paint dry onto it. It'll peel off, but not as easily as if I wipe it off now before it dries. And I'm going to get my brush. I'm going to hold my water container close to my palette, and I'm going to kind of just get a puddle of water in there. And I'm going to mix. Now I'm going to mix that little puddle of water with the paint. So it's almost like watercolor, just kind of flows. And you would just take and paint whatever you need to with that watered down paint. It isn't very thick, it's very thin. It's just to get rid of that pure white color. Okay? And then you can clean out your brush. Clean out your brush. You dip it halfway into the water, but don't go all the way to the bottom. And squish it around so you get it clean. And then when you go to dry it off with a paper towel, you wrap it around, gently wrapping it, starting at the middle, gently going up, so that you keep the shape of the bristles. Now you can see that my paper towel is wet, but there's no color there, so I got my brush clean. Okay, so now that is underpaint. Okay, next is straight acrylic. This is also for tempera. So this is just out of the container, no water. So this is going to be thicker. This is going to be thick. You have a little bit of paint on your brush. A little bit of water on your brush is fine. Again, I'm going to switch colors here. So I'm going to use my palette knife. I'm going to use the back side and get a scoop of paint out of there. I'm going to put it on my palette. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife. Now to mix colors, I'm going to add some of that pale yellow. You should always start with your lighter color, so I should have started with my yellow. Let's not add yellow. Let's add, I'll add blue, because that's what I have. I only have light colors, because that's what I grabbed. So I'm going to take this blue, I'm going to mix it in with the green, with the palette knife. I'm making sure that I get things out of the way here, and I'm going to use the palette knife to mix it. So there's no water added to this paint. It's going to be thicker paint. So just kind of scrape the bottom a little bit, and then pick it up to mix it again. Makes a blue-green, since I mixed the blue and the green. And the blue was pretty light, because it already had white mixed in it. So this makes a tint of blue-green. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my palette knife. Make sure I get all the edges cleaned off. Okay, so now I'm just going to take, when I use my paintbrush, I'm just going to get a little bit on the tip. I don't need to smash the whole brush into the paint. I'm just going to pick up a little bit, and I'm going to paint with it. I have to go back and get more paint, then I go back and get more paint. Different size brushes are going to do different things. So try a variety of size brushes. This one, the brushes are kind of spread out, so it's not painting as nicely as it should. We didn't take care of it very well. So that's thicker paint, no water. And again, I'm going to clean up my brush the same way as I did before. Squish it around in the bucket, but not all the way at the bottom, and then gently wipe it off from the metal part to the tip of the brushes, the bristles, so that it stays together. That looks really dark, but it really isn't that dark. Number 3, the third technique, is masking fluid. Or rubber cement. You can use masking fluid or rubber cement, and this will do the same thing. Masking fluid is this little container here, mask pen. Give it a shake. Unscrew this white cap. Don't unscrew the whole thing. Just unscrew the white cap. And then you need to squeeze and create a design out of it. Makes nice thin lines. The rubber cement is going to cover a bigger area. This is going to make it a little smaller area. And I got to let that dry. Now before I close this, before I put the cap back on, I'm going to wipe it off so that I don't get a big mess all stuck to it. And then I just put the needle back in and screw on the top. So I got to come back to that in a little while after it dries. So I'm going to move on to number 4. I spilled a little bit of blue on my paper earlier, so I'm going to dab that away a little bit. Number 4 is masking tape. This is similar to masking fluid or rubber cement. It's going to keep whatever's underneath of it the same color. So on masking tape, I'm going to get nice, sharp, clean edges. So I'm going to put some tape down. I create a design here, a little bit of a design. Make sure you rub it down, get it stuck on there pretty good. And if you want that torn look, then use the torn edge. You can always use an X-Acto knife to cut a design. I'm just going to put some tape down. And since I still have this blue-green that I mixed earlier, I'm just going to use it because I don't want to waste, because this is just practice. I don't need to keep mixing colors. So I'm just going to paint. Now, when you go to paint across the tape, don't go up towards the edge that you're painting. You want to go a different direction. Either go down, along it, or go side to side. But don't go into it, because it might go underneath your design. paint part of the tape, otherwise it's not going to get covered. So just kind of paint your little tape set designs, and then let that dry a little bit. Wash out your brush. Make sure it's clean. So if that water isn't clean on the paper towel, when you wipe it off, rinse it off again. And then, my masking fluid has still not dried, so I'm going to have to come back to that tomorrow. I'm going to peel off this tape very carefully. Now, if I had paint underneath, I'd have to be really careful to not rip that design. That's why we don't want to leave this tape on for very long, because it will rip. The longer it sticks, the more stuck it gets, so the more likely it will rip. So you're just going to peel this off. And you can see this one had the rough edges, this one has the smoother edges. So there's my two designs that I painted with the masking tape. So I get nice crisp edges. We have two more techniques to go, and then I will come back to masking fluid. Okay, right here. Okay. All right, so this is acrylic technique continued. I'm on my next page, so that's why I'm doing it over here. You do it wherever. If you don't need to rewrite it, that's fine. So number 5 is going to be with your palette knife. You paint with your palette knife. Your palette knife is what you've been mixing with. Now you're actually going to paint with it. So you can take your paint, get a good scoop on it. It could be the color that you mixed, or it might be a fresh one, I don't care which. And you're going to paint, and it kind of makes a thick design. You can use the edge and kind of push some of the paint around to make lines, lighter lines in it, a texture. So you can get thick paint. You can really kind of spread it out and get thin paint. And you can put lines in it with using the edge of your palette knife. So there's a wide variety with your palette knife. And the last technique I'm going to show you is called splatter. So splatter, or spatter, is basically the same idea. So you're going to take your color, and it probably needs to have a little bit of water with it, because otherwise it won't come off of your palette, your paintbrush very well. Get some paint on your brush with a little bit of water on it. And I would mask off whatever you don't want to get the splatter on, but for this one, this is just practice, so you can just tap away. I'm going to take a second brush, and I'm going to tap it. I'm going to loosely hold it in my left hand, because I'm right-handed. And this way, I'm not going flat and it goes everywhere. I'm trying to control it a little bit. Again, make sure that paint in your brush doesn't go all the way to the metal. You don't need to load it that much. And then you can always go back and get more if you need to. And then clean out your brush when you are done. That's the last technique. Now, if you're mixing colors, for mixing colors, always start with the lightest. Color. Always start with the lightest color. Always, always, always start with the lightest color. So, if I'm going to make a tint of this green, I'm going to start with my white. And I'm going to get a scoop of white with my palette knife. I'm going to put it on my palette right there. I can get a couple scoops if I want it really light. I can get just a little bit of white if I want it just barely lighter. I can get a wide variety of tints. Then I'm going to add my color, which is my green, to that white, and I mix it with the palette knife. I got to keep that puddle small, because if I spread it out, it's going to dry up on me faster. I don't have a huge puddle because I don't want to put so much out and then have it dry out on me. If I need a big quantity of something, then I can mix it in my ice cube tray. So I got to get it all mixed in though, because if I leave any of that white or green not mixed in, then later on if I try to use this again, it won't come out the same color. So then I'm going to paint with that. I forgot one important step. Technique, didn't I? I'll have to go back and finish a technique. Sorry. Okay, so then I have a tint of green that I just painted there. I had a little bit of water on my brush. That's all I needed. I'm going to wash out my brush. And I'm going to add some more green with my palette knife to that tint. Mix it up, and I will have a darker green. A darker tint of green, but it's still a tint of green. I can keep adding green, keep making it a little bit darker each time, but it's still a tint of green because I already have the white in there. I could add black and make a gray green, and that would be a tone, and if I start with the color and add black, then I get a shade, which I will go over next time. So I'm going to just paint this. You can see it got just a little bit darker. I'm going to clean up.